Hello everyone, my name is Paul. I work for a company called Micrographics. We are an Autodesk partner in Cape Town, South Africa. During this short video blog, I'd like to introduce the concept of schedules and plans in Autodesk Build. And I'd like to lead up with that with a discussion as to why we might need them. I do not come out of a project management training. My original training was in mechanical engineering. So while I have some sort of logic ability, I have not run a project for myself, so especially not within the building industry. So I had to learn how to do this. And we have typically the proxo and the rebar, which is more the British standards. And I've taken the liberty for myself to compile everything in an Excel spreadsheet, and essentially what it does is over the course of a stage of the building, we have different roles having to perform different actions. So different individuals having to perform different tasks, and generally timelined, and some of the information that are dependent on other things happening. So for argument's sake, if you just look at let's look at a project manager, for instance, they wouldn't be part of the initial project initiation brief, but they would, during the inception, facilitate the development of a clear project brief, establish the procurement policy for the project, assist the client in the procurement of the necessary and appropriate consultants, including the clear definition of their roles and responsibilities, and so on and so forth. Now, of course, we also have the ISO 19650 standard, and that is the one that most people are following. I do not have that set out in Excel yet. However, there's a clear and logical process recipe that needs to be followed for us to complete certain tasks on a building. And a lot of that will depend also on the client, what the client decides they need from the building. So if we can compare that to the rebar, over here we can see, for instance, they didn't do it per role so much as what can the project be relied on. And again, depending on what the client chooses, there will be many different things to do. So, the things that you might get are energy use, embodied use in carbon, the maintenance plan, the detailed design. There's a lot of things in here, an enormous amount of work that could be necessary to do. We only do what is necessary. But again, timelined, a clear sequencing from brief, concept, definition, design, build and commission, handover and closeout. A very clear definition of that. And that's not all. Once we get onto the construction site, you can imagine the sequencing that a project engineer or project manager must perform to get all the services to be coordinated on site to deliver the project on time. So given that we have somewhere the Excel spreadsheet layout of what we need to achieve, let's look at what we can do to try and sequence that. For instance, in this spreadsheet, we can see that we've got a work stage of inception. We have a milestone name of a business plan. The activities that we might pursue within the business plan is to market research, do a 3-year cash flow forecast, 3-year profit and loss forecast, and make sure that funding is secured. Now, some of these are reliant on some of the others, and there's a certain time during which that needs to proceed. And while it is easy enough to output it in an Excel spreadsheet like this, the typical way in which this is approached within the industry is via a Gantt chart. And indeed, this is what most project managers would do. They would rely on something like Microsoft Projects to create that Gantt chart. Now, Microsoft Projects, that does command a fee. It's not free. They are sort of free platforms, but their export is questionable. So initially I thought to myself, all right, Paul, you want to create a Gantt chart. Surely if you go to the schedules within the build module, you'll be able to build up your own import schedule. And in fact, it seems that you can download a sample file over here. Let's see what that looks like, okay? To import a schedule or to create a new plan. So let's download that sample file and let's have a look at what that sample file looks like. So downloading the file and opening the file, it looks in a format that is XER, an XER file format. You can of course open any file within Notepad. That's pretty, I'm not exactly sure what that is, but let's find out. So here I am with import a schedule. I'm importing a schedule and I'm looking for my downloads. There's the XER sample and I open that up and let's see what happens. It's taking a few minutes. All right, and here we can see that the schedule has come in and it is set out in Gantt chart format. It's showing us that there are some items over here with sub-items and that there is some other timelining that is involved for that construction that we can see running down here. So definitely some or other Gantt chart program was used to put this together. Some or other planner was put together to use this. Okay, that's very interesting. And for the moment, I can't edit this. I spent quite a lot of time trying to edit this, and I discovered that you can't edit a schedule within the Build platform. Okay, so we can't edit the schedule. There's nothing that I can do about that. We can see that it exists and that I can bring in multiple schedules and that I can delete the schedule from there. There are some settings and you can share the schedule. There's a few things that you can do, but ultimately no, I do not want that schedule. It's just a sample. It's something that I brought in and it's static and I can't do anything with it. So the next question that I had was, all right, I don't have Microsoft projects. Can I use something within the Autodesk stable, within the AEC collection, to create a Gantt chart? And okay, I know that there's Navisworks, and Navisworks has the ability to set up a Gantt chart. Let me try that. And so I did. I actually created a timeliner on Navisworks, and I decided, well, what can we do with this Navisworks timeliner? We can see that there is an export as a MS Project XML or as a CSV, and this gave me hope. I said to myself, all right, if you export this as a MS Project XML, perhaps you can then upload that and interpret that within the Gantt chart within Build. All right, so I'm just going to put that into the XML format, into the downloads. Let's just try any old name, call it Navis Gantt, and let's see if we can import that so we can save that. And that is now supposedly in a Microsoft Project XML format. Okay, been through all that work, trying to get that going. I've changed the system settings as well. For those of you that are wondering, is it maybe something to do with the way that the date is written or the system is written or anything like that? Eventually I created a case with Autodesk Art. Is it so that an Navisworks file cannot be interpreted by Build? And they said yes, that is the case. So if we had to import a schedule from our downloads, there's the Navisworks Gantt. If we try and open that, it does create the Gantt, but the date's all wrong. So it's interpreting the date formats incorrectly, as we'll see in a moment. Great, so there you can see while the items came in, the dates are all wrong. So you can see that's a very short sort of date that it interprets. So this thing is wrong, I know. I've investigated it extensively. It's not going to work. So unfortunately, the answer from all of this is that the best platform for you to use is going to be some Microsoft projects. There are others that could also work, but Microsoft projects is the one. Luckily, I do have access to Microsoft projects. It's not within my scope of work that I should teach people how to use Microsoft Projects, but I thought, okay, I can give it a shot and I can actually set something up within Microsoft Projects myself, and then we can see how that goes. So earlier we had a look at the Proxer, the South African, it's basically a table of liabilities for different roles within the construction industry. What are they responsible for? And this was the Excel spreadsheet version of it. And I then used Microsoft Projects to create to start creating the Gantt chart. You can see I got as far as basically just the first bit of stage 0. I wanted to test this in Build. This is what the purpose was. Of course, everything within this Gantt chart will have to be fully developed. As we go down the list, you can see that the dates and the times have not yet been assigned. But you can definitely see that there's some other date. You can see from there where the dates are. Alright, so if I close this now and I bring this into Build, then we would expect there to be a schedule that will be created, and we can give that a go. I'm going to import a schedule. I've actually saved this specific schedule in a work in progress folder for myself. There it is. So that's an MPP file, that's a Microsoft Projects file, and I'll see that I'll be able to bring that in. And indeed, it is interpreting the fields correctly. There's the Gantt chart, and then on the right hand side we can see that the dates are also being interpreted correctly. So the date format from a Microsoft Projects file is interpreted correctly by Autodesk Build. Again, it's static. There's no way for you to come and edit the start and the finish date. It is static. You can click on it, you can see the whatever there is, but that's it. It's pretty much static. And if you click on each one of them, you can see the activity, whatever there is. So it's very much a static process. You can of course update this or update the schedule. When you update the schedule, all comments and references added to the activities will move over to the updated schedule and a new version will be created. So there are no connected timelines here yet. Right. And you can see there's some suggestions that can be made with an item and some comparisons that can be made. There are some fields that you can add or leave out. And you can view it as a list Gantt and Gantt, or just as a Gantt, or just as a list. And there's also some other filters that you can include. Like I said, I'm not overly familiar with this platform, but I am trying to get it to work, and this is one of the ways in which your Gantt chart can come in. At least if you now need to update the Gantt chart, you will go back to your Microsoft Projects, you'll make the relevant amendments, and then re-import that Microsoft Projects file. That's the idea behind how you get a schedule into Autodesk Build, and there is your schedule. So the next natural question would be, what do we do with this spreadsheet? Or Gantt chart? Well, we've got something that we need to do here. Let's take the first task. We need to establish project need and desirability. So maybe we need to do a bit of marketing and market research. To get the ball rolling, we have to find out maybe some metrics. So if we have, say, planning, for argument's sake, low cost accommodation close in the Cape Town CBD surrounds, is there somewhere the need and desirability for that? The answer is definitely yes. As everybody knows, in Cape Town the traffic is horrendous. People live far away from the cities. They spend a lot of time on the roads. Many people would like to live closer to the city, but it's expensive, and therefore they don't move, and instead they stay far away from the city and they travel every day and waste their lives away. So there's definitely a need and a desirability. But we would have to go and put metrics behind that. So we would go and speak to whoever's in the municipality, and maybe provincially within the provincial authorities, in the civil services. We will go and speak to people, maybe do a poll, maybe run around on the street and ask people what would they be prepared to pay. So find out what is the minimum cost that we need to do, all that type of thing that we might need to do. And there might be various personalities that are associated with that. Now that's just in terms of a business case, or of a need and desirability for that asset that we want to build. If it is something else that we need to do around constructability, for instance, then we might say, well, for the constructability review that we make of the drawing, we want to have the different discipline leads to come together, have a look at the cores of the building to see if all the services are going to fit and whether the levels are far enough apart so that we can fit all the services into that building. So the point is, there's a line item and there's a plan behind this line item, or somebody has a plan about how to achieve a desirable outcome for that line item. And so if we check this item, we can create a new plan. And perhaps there's more than one item that's going to be associated with that plan. Then we can create a new plan. That plan is going to be to do what? To initiate the project, or validate project need and initiate project. So maybe that's from the property developer side. They want to know if they want to spend money on this. And then who's got access? I'll just say the schedule members. Members with, can edit, and create. Okay. And then create plan. Right, so this now opens from that schedule. It opens a plan, and there we can see we've got established need and desirability, source appropriate land, prepare your first business case, and formalize the client's vision. Okay, so it seems to be quite a visual interface. Over here you can see there is establish a project need and desirability, source the project land, and then there's this whole sort of overarching header, which I don't need in here, so I'll delete that from there. I don't need that. This is the stuff that needs to run concurrently with each other. So I could say that the establishment of the need and desirability might come first. Now you can assign these, as you can see, you can assign them either by company, or you can assign them by location, or as individuals. It seems there's a workbook structure that can also be created. That looks interesting. And then we've got a role. So I'm going to go by asignee for now on. Then I can say, right, there's myself, Paul Storm, and maybe I want to say establish a project need and desirability, and this must be hooked up onto that item over there. Now it's time-based as well, and I can say, right, this I need to move down onto my responsibility over there, and I can say when it must occur. Let's just see if we can, if we right click on this, if we add asignee, then we can say, all right, that's got to go to Paul Storm. You can see Paul Storm is responsible for that task. Are we able to, there's just one asignee over there. That's the assignment. We've assigned it to that person. And now we can say, all right, this guy must first do what he needs to do, and when must he do it. So when we talk about need and desirability, there's a certain, we're given a very short time, 15 to 21. So now maybe I must go in here and I can go and make some more plans over there. How am I going to achieve that? Right, so I realize I'm getting caught a bit short with time here. Not too much time to show everything. Yeah, you can see you can actually sort of drag and navigate and add it to other tasks as well if they're dependent upon that task. And you can see you can also add plans over there. So establish a need and desirability. So I might put in there one of the things that I must do in that new task. Let's put that filter off. There's a new task. And I might say on that new task, what is this called? I want to go and do public poll on housing need, something like that. There's a start date, there's an end date, how far is it complete? You can see who has been assigned to, what role, location, additional priority, crew size, and then there might be handoffs that also need to be done. So that's just with regards to that, and then we can add references as well. So if there are any documents that we need to add, files, photos, sheets, assets, forms, submittals, RFIs, file packages, costs, correspondence, or schedules, those are all the references that we can add. So you can see it's quite a hectic communication platform for making plans and organizing your workforce. So definitely if you are a project manager and you've got other people that are connected via the Build platform, this is going to be an interesting one for you, because you can start tracking the progress of everybody that is using the Build platform. They can all be communicating to you via the plans that you make or that they help you make. So we've got this big project. We need to keep to our plans to get a successful outcome. How do we do that? How do we use all the data that's on this platform to facilitate that for us? So I'm looking forward in the future to delving deeper into this platform, but at the very least, you can now see that we've got the we've got the ability to bring in there's a list as well that you can do, but we've got the ability to bring in data from a Gantt chart and then start creating plans around that and update that Gantt chart if it does change. And so it won't destroy the plans that we've made, but it will augment that with a new timeline. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this. It is a very interesting capability that the cloud platform does expose, and I hope to share some more videos with you in future now that I know how to promote the Gantt chart into the Build platform. Maybe sometime later this year we'll get a nice opportunity to delve into further capabilities that are available for us. Until next time, enjoy the Autodesk Construction Cloud and the best of luck with your projects. Bye now.